Welcome back to Bay Sunday, everybody. Our next guest is the Executive Director of the Asian Pacific Islander Wellness Center. It is the oldest grassroots nonprofit targeting Asian Pacific Islanders in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Wellness Center is also going beyond HIV and focusing in on the intersection of HIV, hepatitis, and substance abuse prevention nationwide. Let's say hello to their Executive Director, Lance Thoma. Lance, how are you?
I'm well.
Thanks for
Frank.
coming in.
Thank
Well,
you for
how
having
did
me.
this all get started back in 1987?
You know, the HIV epidemic, as many of us know here in San Francisco, was a huge issue here in San Francisco. And in our communities, there was a lot being done, but not for Asian and Pacific Islanders. What we found was that there were folks who were dealing with HIV, and the healthcare system and the programs and services didn't address the cultural and language needs. So API Wellness Center was born then.
And I know when they were doing studies on this, a lot of times they would group that community into other.
Yes.
And you know,
Yeah.
not black or Hispanic or whatever.
We still fight that issue,
Yeah.
and that's a huge issue. Not just it's nationwide, and we're still fighting that. Data needs to be standardized. We need to have that across the country so we can truly understand the epidemic in all communities, but particularly in Asian and Pacific Islander communities and other communities of color.
Is AIDS and HIV, is it prevalent in that community?
It is. You know, the prevalence is low, but I think the issue that we fight is stigma in our communities. And so until data collection is standardized and across the country, until we really address the issue of stigma, we're not going to really know the epidemic, the true numbers.
Well, taking root, let's talk about that, which kind of addresses the stigma,
Yes.
gets people to go out, get tested,
Yeah.
families to talk about it,
Yeah.
and friends and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, at API Wellness Center, 8 years ago, we began the National API HIV/AIDS Awareness Day for the country. So we began this in order to start talking about the issue and epidemic of HIV in our families and in our communities, because really that is fighting the stigma. That's getting to the root of why HIV is an epidemic for us. And so this year, we partnered with the Center for Digital Storytelling, and we are actually getting voices of HIV positive and folks who are impacted by HIV and having them tell their stories. And so we have some pretty remarkable stories that we are beginning to promote on May 19th, just last week, and that we will be promoting throughout the year.
To let people know they're not alone.
They're not alone.
It's okay to talk about it.
You know, and that there's shame and stigma there, but there's also strength and resilience, and that families and communities need to know about HIV because we're all affected, and they all know people who are affected.
Talk about what does the Wellness Center do for people with HIV?
Yeah, we do a variety. We provide case management and counseling and health promotion and prevention education for the Asian and Pacific Islander community. But in our past 25 years that we've been in existence, we've expanded to provide transgender care. So we provide the only transgender drop-in center that's 5 days a week, I think, in the country, for all transgenders of all races and ethnicities. And we've expanded into the Tenderloin. So really our services go much beyond Asians and Pacific Islanders, but really at the core, that's where we began, and the kind of issues we've and the services we provided really transcend across race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, immigration status.
Sure. And funding's always an issue, especially in these economic times. But
Yes.
I know the federal government dropped some funding for you
Yes.
folks, but Mayor Lee stepped in and said, wait a minute, we'll take care of that.
Exactly.
Talk about
Thank
that.
you to Mayor Lee. But San Francisco is doing a great job. We're always on the cutting edge of HIV and advances in treatment and technology. And most recently, the federal government backed out almost $7 million of funding for our community, which would have been devastating. It would have been a crisis because that meant 20% of all city services. And so the mayor did step in and made a commitment to backfilling that amount so that our HIV services could remain whole this coming year.
And we're getting close. I mean,
We are.
it's certainly still here, and with
Yes.
the stigma and such, but with all the medical knowledge that we've gained over the last 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
is it getting enough attention?
You know, we are doing, that is part of my role, is to make sure that this issue stays on the agenda for my communities, but also at the national level. You know, the International AIDS Conference, we're so excited, is going to be here in our country for the first time in decades in Washington, D.C. in July. And that's a huge moment, I think, for the world to see our leadership in the U.S. around how we are taking initiative to actually end this epidemic, because the end is in sight. I think that's what I'm excited about, because I think if we persist and we can kind of continue along this fight, we can actually see the end of HIV within my lifetime. And if that's possible, you know, I'm all for it.
Well, you've dedicated your life. Lance, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
We sure appreciate
Frank.
it. We wish you all the best. And if you'd like to learn more about the API Wellness Center and the fight against HIV and AIDS, please log on to APIWellness.org. We'll be right back. More Bay Sunday right after the break.